Her daughter slid the nursing home brochure across the table, pastel-colored, with fake promises. Lily Shore smiled, folded it once, and tucked it into her purse like a receipt. By sunrise, she'd wired $312,000 through a shell trust. Within 10 days, she'd legally own the house they thought was theirs. They wanted her gone, out of the way. She gave them exactly what they asked for, just not the way they meant. Before we begin, may I ask, where in this big, beautiful world are you listening from? It's always a quiet honor to know who's sharing this space. Drop it in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe. The air inside Megan's house felt just a touch too cool for October. Not cold enough to be noticed outright, just enough to keep people from settling in. Lily Shore smoothed her napkin across her lap as Megan brought out a pumpkin tart with an aggressive dollop of whipped cream and an even more aggressive smile. Still your favorite, right, Mom? Lily offered a small nod. Hasn't changed. Across the table, Andrew poured himself another glass of red wine, already 2 ahead of everyone else. He didn't offer to top off anyone else's glass. He never did. Conversation tiptoed across real estate values, Noah's midterms, and some neighborhood dispute involving trash cans left out past 10 p.m. Andrew laughed too loud at his own joke about HOAs being the last stronghold of civilization. Megan laughed too, but with the tight-lipped edge of someone auditioning for harmony. Lily didn't mention the chipped tile by the dishwasher she'd noticed on the way in, or the faint ring Andrew had left on the dining table that Megan hadn't wiped. She just folded her hands and waited. Dessert plates were nearly cleared when Megan reached behind her. Too practiced, too rehearsed, and placed a glossy trifold brochure in front of Lily. We've just been researching. No pressure, just options, Mom. You need more care than we can give, that's all. Andrew leaned back in his chair and crossed his arms. It's about quality of life. You deserve the best long-term setup. Lily picked up the brochure slowly, as if it were a fragile document. Sunfield Estates, independent living with dignity. The cover showed a silver-haired couple laughing on a bench, completely divorced from reality. She flipped it open, letting the pages turn without reading a word. Her eyes didn't need the print. She could feel what this was. A soft shove wrapped in pastels. She smiled. Not big, not angry, just enough. Well, she said, setting it down with the same care one might use to return a borrowed weapon. This is very polished. Neither Megan nor Andrew spoke right away. That silence, the half-beat of tension, revealed more than the whole brochure ever could. Noah, who'd been mostly quiet through dinner, busied himself with scraping leftover tart into a napkin. He didn't meet Lily's eyes. Lily stood to leave not long after. Megan offered her a to-go box. Andrew gave a vague drive safe, and Noah walked her to the car without a word. Just as she opened the door, he looked at her and said softly, "You okay?" She touched his arm. "I'm better than I've been in years." That night, back in her one-story ranch house 2 miles down the road, paid off in full, not a lien in sight. Lily didn't go straight to bed. She didn't watch her usual episode of Jeopardy, or call her sister in Florida. Instead, she walked into her closet, pulled the string for the attic hatch, and climbed up carefully, step by deliberate step. From behind an old banker's box labeled tax years 1982, 1999, she slid out her old fireproof safe. The combination clicked with satisfying precision. Inside her investment log, decades of notes in her hand. Retirement certificates stacked chronologically, a small flash drive marked with 1 red dot, and a yellow legal pad with her late husband's name still written across the top in faded ink. She brought it all downstairs to the kitchen table and made herself a cup of chamomile. Then she opened her laptop, clicked on the encrypted folder she hadn't touched since her 70th birthday, and drafted an email. To Teresa Lakeview Holdings at Secure Mail. Subject, re-property. Scout ready to buy again. I want something close by. Let me know what's in play. Lily, she hit send. Closed the lid, took a slow sip of tea. Her house was silent, but not still. Something had shifted. The air felt charged, as if an engine had quietly roared to life deep underground. At 2:14 a.m., her phone buzzed once. "Teresa, you won't believe the address I'm negotiating. By morning, the sun was barely warming the eastern edge of the kitchen window when Lily clicked back into her inbox. Teresa's reply had come with a subject line that simply read, "Game changer." The body of the email was short and surgical, as always. Final stage talks, 217 Glenwick. Private buyout possible. Lender open. Buyer must remain discreet. More soon. Lily blinked once. 217 Glenwick Drive. Her daughter's home. The same brick front, vinyl-sided house where she'd just eaten pumpkin tart and been handed a brochure like a retirement sentence. That very address now sat inside a negotiation window, floating between entities like an untethered ship. Lily didn't pause. She reached for the burner phone she used only for real estate dealings, and dialed a number from memory. 2 rings, and Mr. Wilkes answered. Smooth, low-toned, always vaguely amused. "Miss Shore, Teresa mentioned you might be reaching out. Tell me the numbers," Lily said, setting her tea aside and clicking open a spreadsheet with lightning precision. He went over the structure. The Davis mortgage was over-leveraged, the result of a hasty refi after Andrew's second failed business expansion, but still recoverable. The lender was holding paper on a balloon payment, due within 9 months, enough cracks to force a transfer if they moved fast. "And if the original lender smells a third party?" Lily asked. "They won't," Wilkes replied. "We're establishing a shell trust with full acquisition rights. Your name won't appear until after closure. I want airtight opacity. I don't need Megan or Andrew suddenly getting creative with calls." "They won't," he said again, crisp. "We've done this 100 times. Their lender thinks it's a portfolio buy from an institutional buyer. They won't dig. Most don't." Lily exhaled slowly. "Let's proceed." 2 hours later, she sat in her study, not the cozy front room she used for guests, but the back office with the locking door and frosted windows. Her retirement account dashboard glowed across the monitor, numbers tallied with tidy precision. 40 years of frugality, smart reinvestments, and deliberate quiet had created exactly the war chest she needed. She moved $312,000 into an escrow sub-account under Lakeview Holdings. The confirmation took seconds. The weight of it landed like a thunderclap, only she could hear. Her phone pinged. A secure message from Dell, her estate attorney. "Need anything added to the standard trust clause?" Lily typed back quickly. "Add line item. No early disclosure to existing borrowers under any circumstance. Enforcement preferred over explanation." A brief pause. Then Dell's reply. "Understood. As always, I trust there's a story behind this." Lily smiled and didn't answer. Dell knew better than to ask twice. Across town, a contractor banged aimlessly on siding 3 doors down from the Davis home. A toddler screamed from a stroller. Mail trucks passed without pause. And at 217 Glenwick, Megan was likely folding laundry or chasing down overdue HOA fees, while Andrew scrolled through a finance blog and congratulated himself on refinancing just in time. They had no idea the house they thought they owned was now being prepped for quiet repossession by the woman they'd tried to sideline with linen-lined brochures and pastel promises. Lily walked outside to her mailbox, the fall wind twiddling her gray hair. She didn't bother to check for mail. She wasn't expecting anything, only movement. At that moment, her phone buzzed again. "Teresa, transfer docs en route. Once signed, trust will be controlling note holder." "You're almost there." The phone rang just after 9 a.m., far too early for Megan to be calling without a purpose. Lily let it buzz 3 times before answering, her tone brisk but not unfriendly. "Morning," she said, drawing the curtains to let the autumn light pool into her kitchen. "Hi, Mom." Megan's voice had that brittle edge Lily knew too well, like glass stretched too thin. "Did you get a chance to really go over that brochure?" Lily walked to the stove and flipped the switch on her kettle. "I did. Very polished." There was a pause. Not long enough to be awkward, but long enough to register. "We could go tour a few places this weekend," Megan offered quickly, "just to see." Andrew even found one with a koi pond. "I know you used to like koi." Lily let a half-smile touch her lips as she stared out the window toward her lavender bed. "Let's wait a bit. No rush." Megan exhaled, a subtle exasperation leaking through the line before she caught herself. "Sure, of course. No pressure." They hung up with mutual pleasantries and the unspoken tension of two women who both knew exactly what the other was doing. But only one of them had the clarity to play the long game. By noon, the mail truck had rolled past. Lily stepped outside and spotted the overnight envelope nestled at the bottom of her box, just beneath a coupon flyer for gutter cleaning. She brought it inside and laid it flat on her counter. Her fingers moved steadily as she sliced it open with her letter opener, a silver one, engraved with her initials and gifted to her by her husband on their 20th anniversary. Inside, 3 crisp documents: the executed mortgage transfer agreement, the trust certificate, and a statement of controlling interest, all stamped, notarized, and irrefutable. A small sticky note clung to the top sheet. In Teresa's compact, no-nonsense handwriting. Trust structure finalized. You are now the lender. Congratulations. Lily folded the note and slipped it into the side drawer of her desk, where she kept only personal victories. The letter from the IRS clearing her of a decades-old audit, her late husband's first handwritten love note, and a blurry photo of her as a young accountant standing outside a building she once dreamed of owning. Now she opened her laptop, navigated through a secure browser, and accessed the shadow-holding account Wilkes had set up. The interface was clean, stripped of branding, designed for discretion. She initiated recurring withdrawals to cover property tax escrows and monthly mortgage servicing payments, ensuring the Davis property would remain technically compliant, even if Andrew and Megan didn't send a single dime. It wasn't about foreclosure. Not yet. It was about structure, stability, and control. Her finger hovered over the final confirm setup button, and she thought about the koi pond Megan had mentioned. How absurd it was, how tone-deaf to think she'd be lured out of her own home by ornamental fish. Click. The system flashed green. Recurring payment schedule active. Her phone buzzed again. Another text from Teresa. Smooth, close. They won't even notice until they miss a payment. Lily replied with a single period. In the corner of her office, a dusty bulletin board still hung with pinned articles. News clippings about real estate collapses, hedge fund tactics, trust loopholes. She'd taught classes on this once. She'd written manuals that CPAs still quietly passed around for edge case scenarios. And now she was the edge case. The screen dimmed after inactivity. Lily stood, smoothed her slacks, and walked to the front window. The street was quiet, but not still. Somewhere just beyond the hedgerow, her daughter's husband was likely sipping coffee and scrolling Zillow. She wondered how it would feel when he discovered his lender had changed, and the new one lived 2 miles down the road and still remembered his SAT score. Then, as if summoned, her phone chimed again. This time it was from Mr. Wilkes. We've received your first borrower statement. Payment bounced. The servicing agreement was printed on linen stock, the kind only bankers and estate attorneys still use. Lily held it between her fingers like a relic, but her eyes scanned each paragraph with practiced sharpness. Clause 4.2. Failure to remit monthly payments by the 10th day following the due date shall trigger automatic notice of deficiency. Foreclosure action permissible after 31 days of non-compliance. She underlined it in pencil. In the margin, she wrote leverage point. Don't blink. She set the document aside and opened a manila folder labeled Glenwick, Historical Payments. Inside, a spreadsheet from Wilkes's office outlined every payment or lack thereof the Davises had made in the past 18 months. 8 late, 3 skipped entirely, 2 covered by emergency funds, and 1 check marked NSF. Non-sufficient funds. Andrew, she thought, had always played with matches and assumed the house wouldn't burn. She sipped her coffee slowly, watching the light shift through the curtains. Then the doorbell rang, soft and unassuming. It was Noah, holding a white pastry box and a hopeful smile. Brought you something from Lillian's cafe. You still like the lemon bars? She let him in with a nod. Only on Wednesdays. He grinned. It's Tuesday. Lily raised an eyebrow. So it is. They settled into the breakfast nook. He passed her a bar on a napkin. She passed him a cup of coffee, black, just the way he liked it. For a while they talked about his classes, his psych professor's endless lectures, the new girl who sat next to him, but didn't speak unless called on. It felt almost normal, until Noah glanced at the folder still open on the table. He tilted his head slightly, eyes narrowing, not with suspicion, but with understanding. Is that their house? He asked quietly. Lily didn't flinch. She looked him square in the eye. Not yet, but soon. He didn't push. Just leaned back, lips pressed together in that quiet way he had when he was watching the world teach him something his parents never could. The moment stretched, respectful and weighty. Then her phone buzzed. A message from Mr. Wilkes, curt and to the point. Payment #001 to Shore Family Trust. Bounced. No pending reattempt. Lily stood, walked to the office, and retrieved a single-page document from her printer tray. Notice of deficiency. Private Lender Form 31D. She filled it out in black ink, the kind that doesn't smear and doesn't fade. No legal theatrics. No warning shots. She placed it in a cream envelope, sealed it, and left it on her front hall table. Is that going to them? Noah asked, still seated in the kitchen. It's going through Wilkes's office. They'll receive it by end of week. He nodded once, the way someone does when they understand that a chapter is ending, and no apology will be issued to soften the page turn. As he stood to leave, he touched her shoulder gently. They don't see you coming. They never did, Lily said. He lingered at the door. Want me to keep quiet? Lily gave a faint smile. Do what you think is right. The door closed behind him, with the same quiet decisiveness she now wielded over mortgages. Back at the table, Lily returned to the servicing agreement. She slid her pencil down to clause 5.1. In the event of default, lender may pursue accelerated recapture of remaining balance. Below it, she wrote, optional, but persuasive. Then she opened her laptop and updated the trust file with a single new note in bold: deficiency filed. Countdown begins. The call came just after 8 a.m., before the dishwasher had finished its cycle and before Megan had taken her first sip of coffee. The return address on the envelope had seemed off, some firm she didn't recognize. When she'd opened it, she'd skimmed once, then again, slower. Notice of deficiency. Loan #81745 LK. Payor Davis, Andrew and Megan. Servicer contact, W&W Management Group, Atten Wilkes office. She thought it had to be a scam, so she called the number. W&W Group. The voice answered, smooth and clipped. Yes, hi, I got a notice. Some kind of payment issue? But our mortgage is with Central First Lending. I see. Please verify the address. She gave it, the digits tumbling out faster now. A pause. Then that mortgage was sold last month. We are the current service. What? Sold? To who? I'm not authorized to disclose buyer information without a subpoena or signed release. Megan's heart dropped into her stomach. But we weren't notified. I'm sorry, ma'am. That would have been handled by your original lender. We only manage servicing for the new owner. Click. Megan stood in the middle of the kitchen, phone still pressed to her cheek, the dishwasher humming dumbly behind her. Andrew came in mid-yawn, scratching his chest. What's wrong? They sold our mortgage. He blinked. What? Who did? Central First, it's been transferred. I just got off the phone with some company, Wilkes or something. I don't even know what that is. Andrew's brow furrowed. We would have gotten something. They can't just... He grabbed the letter, skimmed it, and then moved faster than Megan had seen in weeks. Disappearing into his office, she followed. What are you doing? Checking public filings, he muttered, opening a browser with tabs already preloaded with property databases. If this was sold, there should be something in the county register. Megan watched his hands shake as he typed. Across town, Lily was sitting across from Dell in his corner office, the morning sun painting the wood paneling gold. She handed over a small folder with precisely labeled tabs. Lien summary request, Glenwick. You're not going after them yet? Dell asked, flipping through the documents. Not yet, Lily replied. But I want the engine warmed up. He nodded. You understand once the lien summary's recorded, they'll have 30 days? After that. I know the clock, she said. I wrote it for half the county. Dell gave a small laugh. You always did play the long game, Lil. She didn't smile. This isn't a game. Later that afternoon, Lily returned home and slipped into her garden gloves, stepping out to the side yard, where her lavender stood tall and unbothered. She watered carefully, her hose set to a slow trickle, letting the moisture settle into the roots. Bees hummed nearby, indifferent to human panic. Her phone buzzed in her pocket. Noah, they're freaking out. I'm staying out of it. She typed back one word, wise. Inside her kitchen, the folder she'd left on the counter still sat open. Her notepad bore a new line in crisp capital letters. Full legal right to foreclose initiated. Confirmed. In the Davis home, Andrew stared at a screen full of redacted trust transfer filings and dead-end shell corporations. His jaw clenched. Someone bought it through a trust. Can't see the name. Everything's buried. Megan stood behind him, one hand on the back of his chair. What do we do? Andrew didn't answer, because for the first time since their refinance, he didn't know. Back at her house, Lily shut off the water and removed her gloves. Her hands smelled like lavender and soil. Power, she thought, had a scent. And this was it. Then her phone buzzed again, this time from Wilkes. Legal standing finalized. Foreclosure is at your discretion. The smell of baked ziti clung thick in the air, its cheese browning just enough at the edges to pretend everything was fine. Megan had lit 3 candles along the table, vanilla, something cinnamon, and one unscented tea light that kept flickering out every few minutes, as if it couldn't commit to staying lit. Lily sat at her usual seat by the window, her back straight, her napkin folded neatly across her lap. She hadn't commented on the casserole, or the mismatched plates, or the way Megan's hands trembled slightly as she refilled everyone's glasses with sparkling water that no one had asked for. Across from her, Andrew pushed food around on his plate with his fork, not eating. Noah sat in the middle, unusually quiet, his eyes flicking from face to face, like he was reading subtitles in a silent film. So Megan said brightly, too brightly, Noah says he might pick up an extra class next semester. Psychology of influence. Doesn't that sound interesting? Very, Lily replied, her voice even. Useful field. Andrew cleared his throat. We got some strange paperwork this week. From some company. About the mortgage. Megan went rigid beside him. Lily took a sip from her glass. Oh? Andrew's gaze sharpened. Do you know anything about it? The room froze for half a beat. Only the ticking of the wall clock filled the space, each second tapping against the silence. Lily set her glass down gently. Why would I? I'm just an old woman reading glossy brochures about retirement homes with koi ponds. Noah stifled a cough into his napkin, head bowed. Andrew didn't move. His jaw flexed once, then twice. It's just strange. Someone bought the loan, through a trust. We can't find out who. Must be frustrating. Lily said mildly, as if discussing a delayed Amazon delivery. Megan's fork clattered against her plate. She pressed her napkin to her lips, her eyes already glassy. We could lose the house, she whispered. Lily tilted her head slightly. Then maybe, she said, tone still gentle but knife-sharp at the edges. You should ask the new lender to reconsider. The silence that followed wasn't filled with tension. It was swallowed by it. Megan's shoulders trembled. Andrew looked like he was trying not to erupt, but didn't know in which direction to aim. Noah looked down at his plate and said nothing. Outside the dining room window, the trees rustled under a slow rising wind. Dessert? Megan asked suddenly, her voice cracking under the weight of pretend civility. I made apple crisp. Lily didn't answer. Instead, she turned to Noah. You still like yours cold, don't you? He nodded slowly, something unreadable flickering behind his eyes. Megan stood up too fast, the chair scraping hard against the floor. I'll get it, she said, disappearing into the kitchen. Andrew leaned forward slightly. Whoever this new lender is, he said, voice low. They won't get away with this. We have rights. Lily smiled, calm as moonlight. So do they. He looked at her for a long time, trying to find a crack in her calm. There wasn't one. Then the faint buzz of a phone. Noah glanced at his screen beneath the table. He didn't show it to anyone, but his thumb hovered. Message from Wilkes. Final foreclosure ready packet, prepped. Awaiting client's instruction to execute. Noah looked up, his face unreadable. Lily didn't look at him. She simply reached for her napkin, dabbed the corner of her lips, and waited. The next morning, Andrew sat hunched at the kitchen island, earbuds in, scribbling something onto the back of an envelope while the county recorder's on-hold music chirped through his phone. Megan hovered nearby, pretending to scroll through recipes, but every few seconds, she peeked over at him. The line clicked. Andrew straightened. Yes, hi, Andrew Davis. I'm calling about a property filing. 217 Glenwick Drive. I need any public records showing title or mortgage transfers. Anything recent. A pause. No, I'm not the title holder. I'm the occupant. My wife and I have the mortgage. He emphasized have like it might rewind something. Another pause. Andrew's brows furrowed. What do you mean held by Glenwick Shore Trust? That's not. Who even owns that trust? More silence. Andrew scribbled the name, Glenwick Shore Trust, and underlined it 3 times, the pen digging into the paper. No, I'm not authorized. I understand, thank you. He ended the call without saying goodbye. Megan was already at his shoulder. Well, he threw the pen down. It's a trust. That's all they'll say. No names. No visibility. The records are sealed unless you're a trustee or have a court order. Her voice cracked. So we really don't know who owns the house now. No, he snapped, then caught himself. No, we don't. Back at her own house, Lily stirred cinnamon into her oatmeal and checked her phone. A message from Wilkes sat unread. She opened it with a single thumb swipe. Suggested language for offer in lieu attached. No legal risk to trust. Ball is in your court. She downloaded the file, read the 2-page draft over breakfast, and made 3 handwritten edits. Remove any mention of forgiveness. Reword voluntary exit to settlement relief and capitalize trust in every instance. When she finished, she emailed Dell, please review attached for compliance. I'm ready to extend a courtesy before I exercise my rights. She attached the file, took one more bite, then opened her calendar. Wednesday, book club, 2 p.m. Janet's house. Perfect. Megan tried Wilkes again that afternoon, pacing in the garage with the door half shut, as if secrecy could keep panic out. Ma'am, I've already explained, but this is our house. You can't just refuse to tell us who we're paying. Actually, we can, Wilkes replied, voice flat and clipped. The trust structure is private. All correspondence will come from our office. If you have legal counsel, they can direct inquiries to our compliance team. You're hiding something. This feels illegal. I assure you it isn't. Thank you for calling. Click. She stared at her phone. For a moment, she looked less like a mother and more like someone standing on the edge of a frozen lake, watching cracks spider beneath her boots. Later that night, Lily received a message from Noah. You're terrifying. I love it. She smiled and didn't reply. Some acknowledgments didn't require words. Instead, she wrapped the still warm scones in a linen towel, tucked them into a basket, and drove across town to Janet's split level for book club. The discussion was half-hearted. The group barely finished the novel, but the tea was good and the gossip better. When she passed the basket around, Janet blinked. You made these? Lily nodded. They're incredible, another woman said between bites. You look so peaceful lately. Lighter. Lily reached for her tea, steam rising. I've been sleeping better, she said simply. Another woman chimed in. Whatever you're doing, it suits you. Lily didn't say what she was doing, but she let the quiet satisfaction settle around her like a second skin. As the women debated which book to pick next, her phone buzzed gently in her coat pocket. A message from Dell. Offer reviewed. Legally sound. Sending via courier tomorrow morning. All options now on the table. Lily didn't plan to visit, but when Megan's text came, can you stop by today? It's important. She recognized the quiet surrender tucked beneath those 7 words. She arrived just after noon. No baked ziti this time. No candles. Just Megan in yoga pants and a washed-out sweater, waiting by the front window like she'd been standing there for hours. Andrew was already seated at the dining table, laptop open but idle. His expression was unreadable, but his posture said everything rigid, cornered, bruised by things he couldn't punch. Lily stepped inside, calm and unhurried, holding a manila envelope under her arm like it contained only recipes or tax documents. Noah wasn't there. The air felt heavier without him. Megan didn't wait long. Did you buy our mortgage? She asked, the words thin and breaking before they landed. Lily set her purse down carefully on the console table. I bought peace, she said. Your mortgage just came with it. Andrew stood abruptly, the chair legs scraping harsh against the tile. That's fraud. Lily turned her head slowly, her her gaze locking on him like a scalpel held just above the skin. No, Andrew. Fraud would imply I misrepresented something. Everything I've done has been reviewed, recorded, and filed by the same laws you pretended to understand when you refinanced this place into a ticking bomb. She placed the envelope on the table. One-page summary. Legal. Valid. Clean. You're welcome to read it. Or not. Andrew snatched the envelope, tearing it open. His eyes darted across the language, slowing only once, where her name appeared, not at the top, but as sole trustee, sole beneficiary, sole lender. His face paled. Megan sat down slowly, as if her legs had stopped remembering how to hold her. I don't understand, she said, voice cracking. You came to dinner. You smiled. You ate dessert. I did, Lily replied. You let me hand you that brochure, Megan whispered. You didn't say anything. No, Lily said. Because I don't speak during ultimatums. I listen, I observe, and then I decide what I'll tolerate. Megan's lips quivered. We're your family. Lily stepped forward, just enough to cast a shadow across the paperwork, now trembling in Andrew's hands. You're adults who tried to package my autonomy into a brochure, she said, and sell it as kindness. Megan shook her head, tears rolling now. Why would you do this to us? Lily leaned slightly forward, her voice soft but unflinching. Because love isn't real when it's dependent on control. You wanted me quiet, contained, grateful. You forgot I was never yours to manage. Megan sobbed openly, now her head in her hands. Andrew didn't look up. He was reading the page again, like it might say something different the second time through. Lily straightened her spine and walked toward the door. I'll give you time to read it thoroughly. You'll want to. The next envelope comes with terms. She opened the door. Wait, Megan choked. Is this really happening? Lily paused, one foot already across the threshold. You mailed me a future, in a glossy trifold. This, she nodded back toward the table, is just me returning the favor. And then she stepped outside, letting the door close behind her like the final punctuation mark on a letter they never expected to receive. Inside, the only sound was Megan's quiet weeping, until Andrew muttered, still reading. Clause 7. If we don't respond in 10 days. Megan looked up, her face blotched and hollow. Then what? Andrew didn't answer. The morning light slid through the kitchen, blinds in slanted stripes, pooling across Lily's table like a soft X-ray over her plans. She sat quietly, the steam from her tea rising like a slow exhale as she reviewed the documents Dell had finalized the night before. Each page was flawless, terse in language, tight in scope, and devastating in implication. The offer wasn't emotional. That had been surgically removed from the first draft. It was legal, technical, and uncomfortably generous. If Megan and Andrew signed and vacated the property within 30 days, the debt would be considered resolved in full. No foreclosure proceedings, no court filings, no stain on their credit. It would be as if they'd walked away on their own terms, an illusion Lily was willing to let them cling to. She folded the 8-page packet precisely, no creases out of line, and slid it into a flat white envelope with no return address. As she pressed the seal closed, she paused, not from doubt, but from a certain ceremonial weight. There was power in paperwork, especially when it asked nothing in return but silence and surrender. Outside, the Lakeview courier car idled at the curb. She stepped onto the porch, handed the envelope to the driver without a word, and nodded once. He understood. These kinds of deliveries didn't need confirmation, just completion. At 217 Glenwick, Megan sat cross-legged on the living room carpet, sorting through a basket of unopened mail. When the knock came, she startled, heart catching in her throat. Andrew shouted from the hallway, "Leave it at the door." But the courier insisted on a signature. She opened the door and accepted the envelope without looking at the man's face. Just a pen, a clipboard, her trembling name on the dotted line. Andrew tore into it the second she closed the door. His eyes scanned the opening lines, then slowed, widened, froze. "She's offering to walk," he muttered, blinking. Megan stared at him. "What do you mean?" "She's giving us a way out," Says we leave by the 31st, and it's done. No debt, no court, no foreclosure. For a moment, Megan's eyes softened. It almost sounded like mercy. But Andrew slammed the envelope on the coffee table, the pages fanning out like a broken deck of cards. No, no way in hell. She doesn't get to win like this. She's not asking to win, Megan said quietly. She already did. Andrew rounded on her. So that's it? You want to roll over? Just hand her the keys like she's earned them? Megan looked away. She had spent the last 2 nights waking every 2 hours to check their bank balances, their email inboxes, and the lender portal that no longer accepted their login. Somewhere between night 2 and morning 3, the truth had stopped being something to argue with. I want it to stop, she said, barely above a whisper. Andrew didn't respond. He just paced back and forth, his rage folding in on itself like a collapsed tent. That evening, Noah sat beside Lily on her porch swing. The air smelled faintly of pine mulch and something sweeter, maybe jasmine from the neighbor's yard. He rocked slightly, foot nudging the floorboard rhythmically as he watched her thumb through her notes. He didn't ask how they took the offer. He already knew. Instead, he looked over and said, "Do you think you'll ever talk to them again?" Lily didn't answer right away. She closed the folder gently and placed it on her lap. Her gaze drifted out toward the road, where the light from the lamppost was just beginning to stretch. "I don't think they ever talked to me," she said finally. "Not really. Just at me." Noah nodded. He didn't push. A few minutes passed. Then he looked over again, voice lower, more serious. "You're really doing this?" Lily turned to him. Her eyes weren't cold. They weren't angry. They were resolute. "Noah," she said, with the kind of softness that only sharpened the blade underneath, "I already did." The next morning, Wilkes confirmed receipt of the offer. Day 31 lock change scheduled. 8 a.m. sharp. That same hour, Dell finalized the amendments to Lily's estate plan. Megan's name was erased completely, removed not just as a beneficiary, but as an emergency contact, as trustee, as any point of continuity. Her space in the legacy now belonged to Noah alone. Lily reviewed the updated document once, then again, and finally clicked save. Outside her window, a single red maple leaf detached from the high branch and began to fall, turning gently in the wind, free, deliberate, and entirely unbothered by gravity. Lily didn't plan to stop by. Not officially, but on day 24, quiet, cloudy, and cool enough for a jacket, she found herself driving the long way home from her accountant's office, the envelope with her finalized trust amendments still resting on the passenger seat like a sealed confession. When she turned onto Glenwick Drive, her eyes flicked toward the familiar brick front house before she could talk herself out of it. The driveway was empty. Megan's car, usually parked in the same crooked slant, was gone. So was Andrew's. The house looked paused, suspended mid-breath, like it wasn't sure if it was still theirs or already hers. She parked at the curb, got out slowly, and walked up the drive with the deliberate steps of someone who no longer owed an apology for crossing a line. The front door was locked, but the side gate wasn't. She passed along the wooden fence, her fingers grazing the warped panels. When she reached the garage side door and turned the knob, it gave without resistance. Inside, it was dim and cavernous, clutter stripped to skeletal remains. A child's tricycle with a rusted wheel, a broken leaf blower, empty shelving that once held holiday bins and sports gear. She stood there a long time, letting the silence settle around her like dust. Then, wordlessly, she pulled her phone from her coat pocket and snapped a photo. The shutter sound echoed louder than expected. She didn't take a second one. Noah called her that evening, his voice gentle, hesitant. "I offered to help them pack," he said. "But they said no." Or rather, Andrew said no. Megan didn't really say anything. Lily stirred sugar into her tea, watching the swirl disappear into the amber liquid. "Did you expect they'd accept?" "No," he admitted. "But I thought maybe they'd be too tired to resist." She smiled faintly, but he couldn't see it through the phone. "They still believe surrender is the same thing as humiliation. They haven't learned the difference." He didn't argue. He never did when she spoke that way. 2 days later, Megan showed up at her house. No text, no call, just the faint knock at 4:12 p.m. When the sun had dipped just enough behind the trees to cast long, moody shadows across the porch. Lily opened the door and didn't pretend to be surprised. Megan stood there with her hair pinned back too tightly, eyes red-rimmed and glassy, like she hadn't slept in days, but still clung to the performance of composure. "We're not ready," she said. "We need more time." Lily didn't step aside. She didn't open the door wider. She just stood there, as firm and unmoved as the threshold itself. "Time," she said evenly, "was the first thing you tried to take from me, and now you want more of it." Megan's mouth opened, but no words came out. Behind her, the wind picked up, lifting a few brittle leaves from the edge of the walkway. They spiraled upward, then dropped. Megan looked away. "We didn't mean for it to get this far." "That's the thing about control," Lily said. "You only notice it when it's gone." Megan didn't reply. She simply turned and walked down the steps, slower than she needed to, like she was hoping Lily would stop her. She didn't. That same night, Andrew left a voicemail on Lily's landline. The message was short, sharp-edged, and clumsy with fury. "You're ungrateful. After everything we've done, we built this life. We kept the family going. You wouldn't have half of what you have if it weren't for us." Lily listened to the whole message once. Then she rewound it and played it again, letting the silence between his sentences speak louder than the words. When it ended, she deleted it and whispered to herself, almost kindly, "You built it with my equity." Then she turned off the lamp, walked to the window, and watched the porch light flicker to life as the night pressed in. The moving truck rolled onto Glenwick Drive at precisely 9 a.m., the diesel engine groaning as it eased to a stop in front of the Davis home. A second, smaller van followed behind it, 3 men in gray polo shirts, stepping out, glancing briefly at the house before beginning their routine. They didn't speak much. They didn't have to. This wasn't their first foreclosure. From her porch, Lily watched the scene unfold without leaning forward or straining to see. She had pulled her chair into the shade and sat wrapped in a light gray cardigan, a thermos of coffee resting beside her. The morning air smelled faintly of damp leaves and diesel fuel. At 9:12, she saw Megan through the open blinds of the front window. Hair undone, face drawn, no makeup. She carried a small lamp in both hands, like it was the only item that hadn't betrayed her. Inside the house, the atmosphere had thickened into a kind of grief that didn't have the dignity of death. Boxes were half-taped, some items piled haphazardly into laundry baskets. Megan moved slowly, tear-streaked but quiet, as if crying any louder might shake the walls loose. Andrew was not quiet. "Be careful with that." He barked at one of the movers who had barely nudged the corner of a coffee table against the doorframe. "This is real wood. That's solid cherry. Do you even know what that means?" The mover didn't answer, just adjusted his grip and kept walking. Megan winced at the sound. "Please," she whispered to Andrew, "just stop yelling." But Andrew wasn't built to lose in silence. He stormed in and out of rooms, barking vague orders no one followed, complaining about scuffs on baseboards, about how none of this would be happening if she'd just called a lawyer sooner. "If she hadn't rolled over like you always do," he muttered. Not realizing Megan had stopped packing and was now simply staring at the empty spot where their wedding photo had once hung. At 10:02, Lily stood and stepped down from the porch. She walked slowly but without hesitation toward the corner of her property, where Dell had arranged to meet her for final paperwork execution. A mobile notary sat in her car, reviewing documents. Wilkes had couriered everything: lien enforcement confirmation, final payment notices, and property access certification. Lily signed where required, initialed twice, handed over her ID with steady fingers. By 10:18, she was officially, legally, and irreversibly the full owner of 217 Glenwick Drive. As she walked back toward her house, a navy blue Mercedes slowed as it passed. The window lowered to reveal Teresa, sunglasses perched on her nose, smile curling sharp at the corners. She gave a thumbs up from behind the wheel, then drove on. Lily said nothing, just nodded once, and stepped inside. Noah arrived at 11:07, wearing a hoodie and jeans, hands in his pockets, his face unreadable. Megan met him outside near the sidewalk, her arms folded against the morning chill. "They're almost done," she said, her voice raspy. He nodded. "I saw." She looked down at the concrete, then back up at her son. "You're not judging us?" "I stopped doing that a long time ago," he said simply. He reached into his hoodie and pulled out an envelope. Off-white, unsealed, folded once across the middle. "She asked me to give you this." Megan hesitated. "What is it?" "Something she thought you might want to revisit." He handed it to her, then walked past her without saying goodbye. Megan opened the envelope. Inside was the brochure, Sunfield Estates, Independent Living with Dignity. The same one she had slid across the table weeks ago, dressed in faux concern and pastel tones. Except this one had something new. Lily's neat handwriting scrawled across the bottom margin in dark blue ink. "It's easier to evict a memory than a matriarch." Megan blinked. Then she folded the brochure, slowly, and tucked it back into the envelope, like it had become too sharp to hold bare. Behind her, the movers were closing the truck doors. Ahead of her, the road was quiet. By the time the trucks were gone, and the last door had slammed shut across the street, the silence felt earned. Lily stood in her backyard, with her gardening gloves pulled tight, sleeves rolled just above the elbow. A gentle warmth hung in the air, the kind that comes not from sunshine, but from the way the earth itself exhales after tension. She knelt in the soil, near her lavender beds, turning the dirt carefully with a hand fork, her movements steady and unhurried. The ritual calmed her. It always had. Before meetings, after funerals, during the years when her daughter's calls only came on Mother's Day and Christmas. The soil didn't lie, didn't manipulate, didn't posture. It just received. She reached into a brown paper bag filled with bulbs, white iris and blue hyacinth, and began placing them one by one into the dark holes she'd made earlier that morning. Her neighbor, Marla, leaned over the fence that separated their yards, curiosity barely masked behind her tinted sunglasses and polite smile. "Everything okay, Lily?" "I saw the moving truck across the street. Looked final." Lily didn't stop working. She pressed a bulb into place, then looked up and met Marla's gaze. "It was time," she said softly, almost kindly. Marla gave a small, confused nod, as if waiting for more that never came. "Well, it's certainly quieter over there." Lily returned to the dirt. She didn't need the neighborhood to understand, just to adjust. Noah arrived around lunchtime, a brown paper bag from their favorite deli in hand. He let himself in without knocking, and found her in the sunroom, peeling the garden gloves from her fingers. "I brought the usual," he said, setting the bag down. "Turkey with sprouts. No mayo. Extra pickles." Lily smiled. "You remember, they didn't talk while they ate. There was no need." The silence between them had never been empty. Afterward, they sat on the porch, watching two squirrels chase each other up the oak tree near the curb. The breeze had picked up again, scattering golden leaves along the sidewalk like someone shaking out old regrets. Noah finally broke the silence. "She posted about you, you know, Mom." Lily didn't turn to look at him. "I'm sure she did. Facebook. Said she was the victim of generational betrayal. That you used her love to financially sabotage your own family." He waited for a reaction. Lily offered none. And the comments? She got a handful of hearts. One old coworker asked if she meant to send it privately. Everyone else ignored it. She deleted it an hour later. Lily reached for her teacup and took a slow sip. A lie doesn't last long when it doesn't match the wallpaper. Noah chuckled, but quietly. By 3 p.m., Dell had emailed the final confirmation. All trust documents amended, notarized, and secured. Megan's removal is complete. Noah listed as sole successor and executor. Distribution structure locked. Lily read it twice. Not because she doubted the work, but because some moments require rereading simply to acknowledge they happened. She closed the laptop, leaned back in her chair, and stared at the ceiling fan as it rotated lazily above her. At 6:15, Teresa arrived with a chilled bottle of Sauvignon Blanc and two etched glasses that looked like they belonged in a private club. "Not to gloat," Teresa said, pouring evenly, "but that may have been the cleanest decapitation I've ever seen pulled off without litigation." Lily took her glass, the stem cool against her fingers. It wasn't about vengeance, she said. Teresa raised an eyebrow. No, it was about gravity. They'd been suspended too long in entitlement. Eventually, something had to bring them back down. They clinked glasses gently. To gravity, Teresa said. To peace, Lily replied. They drank. Outside, the crickets began their soft chorus, the early notes of an evening that would carry no burdens forward. For the first time in months, there was nothing more to sign, nothing to monitor, no one left to outmaneuver. And yet, Lily's phone buzzed on the armrest beside her. A name she hadn't seen in weeks. Megan. Just a single line beneath it. Please, just talk to me. Lily didn't touch the phone, didn't even blink. The message from Megan remained unread. It sat on Lily's screen like a stone in the middle of a polished floor. Visible, deliberate, and entirely untouched. She didn't delete it. She didn't respond. She simply opened her settings, tapped through a few quiet screens, and removed the contact altogether. No more emergency listing, no medical proxy, no backup alert. The woman who had once written her school permission slips and forged her husband's signature on late homework notices had now been fully erased from every page of Lily's legal life. By mid-morning, Lily sat once again in Dell's office, surrounded by the comfortable hush of wealth, managed well. The air smelled faintly of old paper and lemon oil, the scent of decades-long competence. The final version of her estate plan sat open in front of her. No more conditions, she said, passing her pen across the signature line. Dell adjusted his glasses. Full transfer? To Noah, she confirmed. Unrestricted. Sole successor trustee. He gets the trust, the house, the funds, everything. I don't want Megan's name listed as an alternate, not even as a contingency. Dell didn't ask why. He already knew. She signed the page cleanly, with the same steady hand that had balanced accounts and drafted tax codes before her daughter had ever learned to spell inheritance. When she was done, she placed the pen gently beside the folder and folded her hand. Dell looked at her, quiet admiration softening the edge of his voice. You were patient, he said. That's what won. Lily tilted her head, offering only the ghost of a smile. It was never a race. That afternoon, she wrote the letter by hand, not out of sentimentality, but out of principle. Some things, even in a digital world, are best delivered in ink. Megan, the house was never yours. Neither was my dignity. You just thought both could be managed. Lily, no flourish, no sign-off, no plea for understanding. Just the facts in her neat, upright cursive. She folded the letter once, placed it in a linen-textured envelope, and wrote the address slowly across the front. No return name, no note inside. Just closure delivered with a first-class stamp. She walked it to the mailbox herself, dropped it in, and stood for a long moment as the metal door clicked shut. Elsewhere in Raleigh, Andrew was pacing. He stood in a strip mall law office that smelled like toner and desperation, waving a manila folder at a junior attorney who looked barely old enough to rent a car. She manipulated us. There has to be something. A clause, a backdoor. That property was ours. The attorney skimmed the file with professional detachment. According to this trust structure and the transfer documentation, it wasn't. Not anymore. But she was family, doesn't that count for something? The attorney looked up, expression unreadable. Not in contract law, especially when the contracts were airtight. Andrew snatched the folder back and stormed out, slamming the glass door behind him hard enough to rattle the plastic blinds. 2 days later, the lawsuit was filed, and 3 business days after that, it was dismissed immediately and without prejudice. At home, Lily stood at her kitchen counter, slicing peaches for a tart she didn't intend to share. The news of the lawsuit had come in a brief, efficient email from Dell. Case dismissed. No action required. Congratulations again. She didn't smile, but her hands moved with the easy rhythm of someone who had baked through both celebration and grief, and knew which one required more precision. Noah arrived around 6, the screen door creaking open behind him. I saw the notice, he said. Which one? He raised his eyebrows. The one with your name, in the courthouse record. Dismissal. Lily wiped her hands on a towel. It was always noise. He leaned against the counter. You sure you're done now? She looked at him, her expression calm but unshakable. Now, she said. We begin. By early October, the weather had cooled enough to coax the flannel blankets out of the cedar chest and place one across the back of Lily's porch rocker. She'd left the door open to let the breeze through, the scent of damp soil mingling with distant chimney smoke. Someone nearby had lit their first fire of the season. Noah was out front with a paint roller, coating the porch railing in a soft eggshell blue that Lily had picked from a swatch labeled Resilient Sky. It wasn't a metaphor, it was just what she wanted. Inside, her laptop sat open into a donation confirmation screen. The scholarship application was live, the header reading, the Charles W. Shore Memorial Fund for Emerging Accountants, supporting first-generation college students, with a passion for numbers and an eye for fairness. Lily had written the mission statement herself. She hadn't cried while writing it, only after once she'd closed the browser and sat with the silence. Charles had always believed in numbers, in transparency, in the kind of integrity that could be audited without fear. And now, even in absence, he would be putting young people through school. Not in his name alone, but in his memory's function. That same week, she and Noah finalized paperwork on a new initiative, the Glenwick Resilience Fund. A small but well-structured financial support program for aging homeowners on fixed incomes, those too proud to ask for help but too close to losing everything not to need. The fund was backed directly by equity from the Davis house sale. Clean, legal, visible. She'd insisted on that part. I want it to be public, she told Noah. No shell entity, no hidden hands. Let people see what can be done when you stop negotiating with guilt and start investing in clarity. He had nodded, his expression quiet but firm. You're setting fires without matches. And without apology, she said. 2 weeks later, the local paper ran a story with the headline, Former CPA turns family conflict into community legacy. The photo they used showed her standing beside the lavender bed, arms crossed, face relaxed but not passive. A woman who had taken control, not because she needed revenge, but because she had no intention of leaving quietly. She got a dozen emails after that. Old colleagues, a few past students, even a neighbor down the block she barely knew. But she didn't reply to most of them. Not out of rudeness, just peace. That afternoon, she stepped outside with 2 mugs of ginger tea and handed one to Noah, who had paused to reload his brush. You didn't have to paint it, she said. I know, he replied. But I wanted to. She sat in the rocker, blanket draped across her lap, watching the slow glide of his strokes. There was something satisfying in the evenness, the patience of it. It reminded her of spreadsheets done by hand, of books balanced to the penny. Around 4 p.m., Teresa arrived in a crisp wool coat, a bottle of red tucked under one arm. She didn't bother knocking, just walked around to the back and held it out like a medal. I believe this is what you drink when you close your last loop, she said. Lily took the bottle and tilted her head. There's always one more loop. Not this time, Teresa said. This time you turned the whole system inside out and handed it back with a bow. They shared a laugh, not loud but real, the kind that finds its own rhythm and doesn't ask permission. Just as the sun began to lower past the treetops, the porch bathed in gold, Noah set the paintbrush down and looked at his grandmother. You okay if this stays our tradition? He asked. Fall cleanups, porch touch-ups, side-by-side silence. She looked at him a long time before answering. Her voice was clear, her eyes steady. You're not continuing something, she said. You're beginning it. From the kitchen, her phone buzzed once. She didn't check it. She just leaned back, wrapped her hands around the warm mug, and exhaled. Not from relief or fatigue, but from something deeper, something finally unburdened. By the time the sun crested over the ridge that morning, Lily had already brewed her second cup of Earl Grey and logged into her financial dashboard. The screen glowed with quiet symmetry, no red flags, no overdue reminders, no pending drafts. The trust was fully funded, the scholarship endowment secure, the Glenwick Resilience Fund already showing first disbursement activity. The final line in her personal accounts read with a kind of quiet grace, total liability, $0. She scrolled once more, not because she doubted the numbers, but because she knew this was the last time she would ever need. In the lower corner of her screen, A document marked final_methodguai_statement.pdf waited unopened. She clicked, watched it expand, and read the line she had waited half a lifetime to see. Mortgage status, paid in full. She printed it, trimmed the white edge with a pair of shears, and placed it in a black frame with clean lines and no embellishment. Then she stood and walked to the fireplace, centered the frame on the mantel just beneath the old oil painting of the Outer Banks her husband had loved, and stepped back to look. For a moment, she didn't think anything. She just stood there in stillness that felt earned. By late morning, Noah had packed the last of his things into the trunk of his car. A scholarship waitlist had opened up at a graduate program in DC. His acceptance was fast-tracked, and he was leaving before the trees even finished turning. Lily handed him a brown paper lunch bag with a handwritten label that said, "For when the vending machine isn't worth it." Inside was a sandwich, a note, and $200 in 20s. He laughed when he opened it, but there was something damp in his eyes when he hugged her. "You didn't just give me a clean slate," he said into her shoulder. "You taught me how to protect it." Lily held him tightly, then stepped back, smoothing the collar of his jacket like she had when he was 6 and going to his first day of school. "You know where the spare key is," she said, "and where the tea is." "I'll be back at Thanksgiving," he promised. "I'll bring the scones." She smiled, small and complete. "This time you can make them." By mid-afternoon, she returned to the porch. The rocking chair creaked as she settled into it, warm tea in one hand, the other resting loosely over her lap. There were no calls scheduled. No deadlines, no more envelopes in the mail that would upend a week. The breeze was soft, just enough to ruffle the edge of her sleeve. Birds chirped without insistence. Somewhere 2 houses down, a screen door banged lightly shut, followed by the soft murmur of wind chimes. Her phone buzzed once. She didn't jump. The screen lit with a name she hadn't seen since the last time she chose not to reply. "Megan Davis, please talk to me." She stared at it for a long moment, then she tapped block contact. The screen went dark again, returning to her wallpaper, a photo of the lavender field she had planted last spring. No more negotiations, no more pretending reconciliation was a form of growth. In the early evening, as the shadows lengthened and dusk pulled its quiet curtain over the trees, she lit a single candle on the mantel. It wasn't for memory or mourning, it was for closure. A small flame to mark the end of interference. The soft scent of sandalwood drifted through the room. She sipped her tea and glanced once more at the framed mortgage statement. It gleamed faintly in the candlelight, just paper and yet more sacred than any heirloom. Outside, someone's porch light flickered on. Inside, Lily leaned back in her chair, exhaled slowly, and let the weight fall away. The house was hers. Her peace was hers. Her name belonged nowhere it didn't choose to go. And the brochure, tucked neatly inside her files, now marked with a yellow post-it that read only one thing. "They sent me a brochure. I sent them a bill."